Radio What Studios, and this is my podcast, What Makes You Smarter. It's an extension of the RadioWhat.com internet radio station that I've been running for quite some time. And if you need DJ services, where do I always send you? DJLittleRock.com. One more time, DJLittleRock.com. Check availability and get a free price quote. And maybe you can have me, Keys Dan, at your next event. I like to party with the people. Let me entertain you. It is Friday night. Yes. Oh, as I record this, well, it's Friday evening as I record this week's shows. Tonight, I will be at the RAB in Conway, Arkansas. So if you're watching this as I'm recording this live streaming on Facebook, Twitch, and YouTube, you know what the place to be tonight is the RAB in Conway, Arkansas. In fact, I have to leave pretty soon. So let's get on with it. If you'd like to tell your story or hear the stories of others, I encourage you to check out my other podcast, What Makes You Famous. Find it everywhere using the hashtag What Makes You Famous. And if you want to watch me stream games, I'll probably do that after the show tonight. In the wee hours of the morning, you could find me online at hashtag Keys Dan Gaming. I'll be streaming live at least on Facebook and Twitch. The YouTube, I'll probably save that just for the podcast that I've been doing. Now, on with the show. Today on the program, 10 things you need to know today for Friday, October 9th, 2020. 10 things you need to know today. Number 1, FBI foils alleged plot to kidnap Michigan Governor Whitmer, spark civil war. The Federal Bureau of Investigation on Thursday charged 6 people with plotting to kidnap Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer, Democrat. 7 others, members of the right-wing militia group Wolverine Watchmen, face state charges of targeting police and threatening to, quote, instigate civil war, end quote. Investigators believe some of the defendants participated in armed protest against Whitmer's coronavirus lockdown and plan to put her on, quote, trial, end quote, for, quote, treason, end quote. The alleged domestic terrorist plot included plans to overthrow state governments that the defendants, quote, believe are violating the U.S. Constitution, end quote. According to a federal criminal complaint, Whitmer said President Trump had emboldened hate groups. Trump responded by saying she had done a, quote, terrible job, end quote, and should reopen her state. This is according to the Detroit Free Press and MLive. Number 2, Trump says he won't participate in virtual debate. Next week's scheduled second presidential debate was left in limbo on Thursday after President Trump, who is fighting COVID-19, said he would not participate after the organizers said it would be held virtually as a precaution against coronavirus infections. Quote, I'm not going to waste my time on a virtual debate, end quote. Trump said in an interview with Fox Business anchor Maria Bartiromo, okay. Quote, you sit behind a computer and do a debate. It's ridiculous. And then they cut you off whenever they want, end quote. Trump was widely criticized for repeatedly interrupting his Democratic rival, former Vice President Joe Biden, during their first of their 3 scheduled debates. Biden's campaign rejected a proposal from the Trump camp to push back the next 2 debates. Quote, Trump's erratic behavior does not allow him to rewrite the calendar and pick new dates of his choosing, end quote, said Biden deputy campaign manager Kate Bedingfield. This is according to CBS News. Number 3, Hurricane Delta strengthens as it approaches Louisiana. Louisiana braced for a possible direct hit by Hurricane Delta on Friday. It will be the 10th named storm to hit the U.S. this year, breaking a record set in 1916. The storm strengthened on Thursday as it crossed the warm waters of the Gulf of Mexico after striking the Yucatan Peninsula early Friday. Delta was a Category 3 storm with top sustained winds of 120 miles per hour, the National Hurricane Center said. Forecasters expect the storm to weaken slowly as it approaches the Gulf Coast. The storm is expected to make landfall near Creole, Louisiana. It could spawn tornadoes and drop up to 10 inches of rain as it heads inland. It also could flood some coastal areas with potentially life-threatening storm surge of up to 11 feet in some areas, the National Hurricane Center said. This is according to the National Hurricane Center and Reuters. Number 4, Pelosi, Mnuchin revive effort to reach coronavirus relief deal. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, Democrat California, and Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin resumed discussions of a new coronavirus relief package on Thursday, reviving hopes of a possible stimulus deal shortly after President Trump abruptly called off negotiations until after the election. Pelosi and Mnuchin talked for 40 minutes about the prospect of a, quote, comprehensive bill, end quote. Pelosi spokesman Drew Hamill tweeted after the speaker rejected Trump's suggestion of standalone bills to help struggling airlines and sending checks to individual Americans. Early in the week, Pelosi and Mnuchin discussed an elusive fifth pandemic aid package, but they couldn't find a compromise between the GOP's $1.6 trillion proposal and the $2.2 trillion package House Democrats have approved. This is according to CNBC. Number 5, Trump's doctor says he can return to public events Saturday. White House physician Sean Conley said Thursday that President Trump could safely resume public events on Saturday after completing treatment for COVID-19. The announcement came just 3 days after Trump returned to the White House from Walter Reed Medical Center, where Trump was given the antiviral medication remdesivir, the steroid dexamethasone, and an experimental antibody cocktail. He also twice received supplemental oxygen. Connolly said Trump was responding, quote, extremely well, end quote, to treatment and, quote, has remained stable and devoid of any indications to suggest progression of illness, end quote. Conley's announcement came exactly a week after Trump's diagnosis, although the White House has declined to say when he last tested negative for the coronavirus. This is according to The Hill. Number 6, Pelosi announces plan to discuss invoking 25th Amendment. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, Democrat California, on Thursday announced legislation seeking to create a commission to explore declaring President Trump unfit for office and relieving him of his duties under the 25th Amendment. Pelosi said Trump had been behaving erratically and appears to be in an, quote, altered state, end quote. So he needs to disclose more information about his health since his COVID-19 diagnosis, which left him hospitalized over the weekend. He received several aggressive and experimental treatments and was twice given supplemental oxygen before he was discharged Monday to continue recuperating at the White House. Pelosi said Trump should say when he last tested negative to determine when he first was infected and whether he followed the advice of his administration's medical experts on avoiding infecting others. Quote, the public needs to know the health and condition of the president, end quote, Pelosi said. Trump responded by tweeting that, quote, crazy Nancy is the one who should be under observation, end quote. This is according to the Associated Press and Bloomberg. Number 7, weekly jobless claims again exceed expectations. The number of Americans filing new jobless claims again came in higher than expected on Thursday. The Labor Department said 840,000 Americans filed first-time jobless claims last week, a decline of 9,000 from the revised number from the previous week. This was higher than the 825,000 claims economists had been expecting. Continuing claims fell to 10.98 million, a decline of around a million. Quote, the decline in continuing claims is welcome, but initial claims offer a better read on the real-time state of the labor market, and the downward trend has stalled more or less, end quote. Pantheon Macroeconomics chief economist Ian Shepherdson told CNBC. The number of new applications for unemployment benefits also remains significantly higher than the weekly record prior to the coronavirus pandemic, which was 695,000. This is according to CNBC. Number 8, GOP fundraiser charged with illegal foreign lobbying. Elliot Broidy, the former Republican National Committee deputy finance chair and one of President Trump's top fundraisers in 2016, has been charged with conspiring to violate the Foreign Agents Registration Act. The charges were filed last week, according to a federal court filing made public on Thursday. Broidy is accused of accepting $6 million from an unnamed foreign client and trying to get Trump administration officials to drop an investigation into Malaysian government corruption. Broidy also allegedly attempted to get a Chinese citizen extradited from the United States. Neither effort was successful. Broidy is expected to plead guilty. In April 2018, he stepped down from his RNC position after it was reported he had an affair with a Playboy model and paid her $1.6 million to stay quiet. This is according to ABC News. Number 9, U.S. hits Iranian banks with new sanctions. The Trump administration on Thursday imposed new sanctions against 18 Iranian banks, potentially locking Iran out of the global financial system and further damaging its already crumbling economy. The move came days before a United Nations arms embargo against Tehran is due to expire, and just 3 weeks before the U.S. presidential election. The Trump administration has tried unsuccessfully to get allies to penalize Iran for violating its landmark nuclear treaty, which President Trump has abandoned. Quote, "Our maximum economic pressure campaign will continue until Iran is willing to conclude a comprehensive negotiation that addresses the regime's malign behavior," end quote. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said in a statement. Iran's foreign minister Javad Zarif tweeted that his country would, quote, "survive this latest of cruelties," end quote. This is according to the New York Times. Number 10, World Food Program wins Nobel Peace Prize. The United Nations World Food Program has won the 2020 Nobel Peace Prize in recognition of its, quote, "impressive," end quote, response to, quote, "a strong upsurge in the number of victims of hunger in the world," end quote. Due to the coronavirus pandemic, Berit Reiss-Andersen, the chair of the Norwegian Nobel Committee, said on Friday, quote, "Until the day we have a vaccine, food is the best vaccine against chaos," end quote. Reiss-Andersen said. On Thursday, the 2020 Nobel Prize for Literature went to Louise Gluck, the American poet, quote, "for her unmistakable poetic voice that with austere beauty makes individual existence universal," end quote. Gluck, an English professor at Yale, published her first collection of poems, Firstborn, in 1968. Another collection, The Wild Iris, 1992, was awarded the Pulitzer Prize. Gluck also won the National Book Award in 2014. This is according to CNN and the Associated Press. That's 10 things you need to know today for Friday, October 9th, 2020. Thank you so much for listening. This has been What Makes You Smarter. I'm Keys Dan, trying to fill my noggin with knowledge. And while I'm at it, I have this broadcast software. I'll read it into a microphone, and maybe you'll get some knowledge too. But don't make me the only source of news for you. Make sure that you look up all the footnotes that I leave at the bottom of every news item, for sure. We'll get smarter together. And if you have some comments or any additions, hey, please drop me some comments. You know, I like to read your inputs. I like to know more about a lot of different kinds of subjects. So if you have anything interesting to say, hey, go ahead, tweet at me, drop me some comments wherever you're watching this or listening to this. We'll get smarter together. Also, if you'd like to have a full conversation with me, I encourage you to check out my other podcast, What Makes You Famous. Find it everywhere using the hashtag What Makes You Famous. And if you want to watch me play some video games, you can do that too. I'm putting out that content. Hashtag Keys Dan Gaming. Find me on Twitch, YouTube sometimes, but mostly Facebook Gaming and Twitch. Hashtag Keys Dan Gaming. All right, that's it for me. It's Keys Dan, RadioWhat.com, DJLittleRock.com. Meet me at the Rab tonight.